So welcome everyone to the Dashboard Dojo. So glad to have you back. I love the idea of taking on different topics with different data models in particular. There are a handful of different data models that Salesforce has built out on the Salesforce platform. And one of the oldest and one of the most interesting and most meaningful is the nonprofit success pack. So today we're going to talk about that. In the future, we could also talk about what they've done for health or the health cloud or manufacturing or finance cloud. There's so many interesting, they're working on one with retail, so many interesting data models. And I think why this is valuable, not, for anybody, not just nonprofit related, but just like, how do you work with a different set of data within Salesforce? And objects have been renamed and there are custom objects and that sort of thing. So today we're going to talk about reporting in Salesforce NPSP. We have a very special guest, my good friend Daniel Gorton, who is at City Year. My name is David Carnes. Why don't we go to the next slide? All right, so what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about us. We're going to talk about you. We're going to dive into Waza and Shiai. So techniques and not hands-on sparring practice today, but Daniel will be demoing a number of things with reporting and NPSP. We'll talk about some upcoming Dōjō topics. We're going to spend a lot of time in the next 2 months talking about formulas and reporting, which is one of the best skill sets to develop. I'll share a little bit about a couple of OpFocus training events that I have coming up, and we'll take on some Q&A. So why don't we go to the next slide? So a little bit about us. So my name again is David Carnes. I founded OpFocus back in 2006. I've been working on the platform since 2005 and just thrilled to spend time digging into reports and dashboards. I mentioned we have Daniel Gorton, who is the Senior Business Systems Manager at City Year for Salesforce. He's a 9-time certified application architect, platform champion. He hosts co-hosts the Boston Salesforce Saturday and is just very involved with Salesforce Ohana in general. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
We thought to get started with just a quick poll of asking, where are you on your NPSP journey? Maybe Kyle can host the poll for us.
All right, should be available. So please submit your answers.
And this is Kyle Shagnon of the OpFocus team who's helping host the event. Thank you, Kyle, for being with us.
Of course.
Okay, clearly we have some fun with the polling questions, but or polling answers. But I do think it's important to figure out where everybody's at, and it's all good. We're all in some different place. There's such a range of sort of where you might be with a topic, and we're all on that journey. So great. So it looks like we've got a number of people who are working within nonprofits, but maybe haven't made the switch to NPSP. And then the majority of folks that have answered are spending time in a nonprofit success pack org. And we have one person who has an NPSP tattoo. That's great. What we also thought to do is perhaps ask the group, do you have any reporting goals that you might share, or any reporting experiences that you might share to help kick us off? So we've been trying out using the hand raise function and just getting people to come off of mute and share either goals that they have or experiences that might be meaningful to the group. So I don't know if anybody has anything that they might like to get us started with. Love to hear from Ted or Jay. I'm sure Jay has, we've got 2 Jays on the call today. All right, so it looks like somebody raised their hand.
Hey, it's Jay DeLon.
How's it going, Jay?
Real good. So I think the easy one to highlight, because we've been talking about NPSP, is also volunteers for Salesforce, which is part of that NPSP world. And we've been spending a good bit of time trying to understand how best to report on volunteers.
Oh, that's great. And I think a lot of us with sort of the central focus of sales in the name Salesforce, we think of money, and I think a lot of us think of donations, but there's so much interesting stuff, whether it's program management or constituents or so many aspects of running a nonprofit that we can report on. So I think volunteers, that's fantastic. Anyone else want to raise their hand? And it looks like Ted has, Ted, I'm so thrilled that you've joined us today.
Unmute. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, how's it going, Ted?
Hey, great, Dave. Nice to see you. Yeah, so I put down that I had the tattoo, but that's just because I have lots of tattoos. But no, my experience with NPSP is in reporting a lot of times focuses on the household individual donors, and then how sometimes those individual donors are also part of an organization, and they might be like the primary contact for an organization that is also donating, and trying to tell a complete story through reporting that so-and-so is donating both individually and as part of an organization. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's really very meaningful. And, you know, it's interesting having worked in the Salesforce space for so many years as a consultant and working across data sets, and then seeing the similarities. And one of the earliest ones that'll blow everybody's mind is, you know, working with Remington Arms many years ago that manufactures guns, ammunition, cutlery, and accessories, and then also working with Bright Horizons many, many years ago, which has, you know, billion-dollar childcare. And there being similarities in the needs related to data and reporting that you just wouldn't expect. And I think of something similar, organizations that sell tickets. It could be one of the big professional sports organized, you know, they have a really similar challenge. And it's not with fundraising, it's that people buy tickets with their Gmail address and their Yahoo address and their work address. So we see these similarities across different needs. So Ted, really glad you're with us. Anyone else want to share a reporting goal for NPSP or an experience that they have? Looks like maybe Humberto might have raised his hand. Okay, we've got Saulo. Go ahead, Saulo.
All right. My goal with NPSP reporting is that some contacts are affiliated with many different organizations, and we're trying to identify who are the most prominent contacts for a future campaign by measuring the number of affiliations and the longevity of those affiliations. So trying to use a report structure to quickly find the best targets for a future campaign is something that is on the goal here, and navigating the reporting structure is quite challenging.
Yeah, oh, well, that's so interesting. What an interesting topic, because you do have people that serve on multiple boards and they might be volunteers, and you know, they're obviously highly engaged. I think that's a great topic. And that's one that I feel like if we don't address it during this session, that we should probably put a few heads together and see if we can get you an answer for that, Saulo.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else before we dive into the content for today? Anyone want to share a goal or an experience with reporting in NPSP? Anyone want to vent how much they hate it? All right, looks like Bruce wants to say something.
Well, just compared to standard Salesforce, it's a bit more of a challenge to communicate to your users how do you report on accounts and contacts. It's not just that one-to-one thing anymore. You have to kind of point out, you know, okay, your contacts may have multiple affiliations. You probably want to focus on the primary ones. And if you want to make use of all their affiliations, you need useful data in them.
Yeah, yep. Maybe we can connect. Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm really glad that you've joined us again. Maybe we can connect you and Salo to just experience share on managing that and dealing with that, the multiple contact associations. So thank you everyone for sharing. Why don't we go to the next slide and we'll talk about what we're going to talk about today.
All right. So today's techniques or topics, we're going to start with a very high-level intro to NPSP, acknowledging that we have a diverse audience here today. We'll spend some time talking about the NPSP data model and data dictionary, because they're great starting points to understand what types of information are available. We'll show some demos of some of the nearly 60 out-of-the-box reports with NPSP. We'll go over examples of custom reports in a dashboard. One of my favorite features that enables a lot of great reporting, customizable rollups. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, as we've heard through some of the sharing, there's more to report on than just financials. So we'll cover some examples of what they are. Okay, so a high-level intro to the Nonprofit Success Pack. It's part of a larger suite of offerings with Salesforce.org's Nonprofit Cloud. And Nonprofit Cloud helps organizations better connect their stakeholders to their mission, have a more comprehensive view of the people they engage with, and manage the organization's business processes, specifically around fundraising as one example. NPSP itself consists of managed packages and custom objects that are installed in a Salesforce org to extend the capabilities of the core platform, especially Sales Cloud. It's designed and enhanced with features, a data model, and processes to meet the specific needs that nonprofits have. I just also want to point out that the image on the slide has reference to the partner technology in the App Exchange ecosystem. And as a little bit of a fun fact, Nonprofit Cloud has its own Nonprofit Cloud consultant certification. Now, if you know me, you know how much I love the Salesforce community. And NPSP has a vibrant community that I'm a passionate contributor and leader within. And I would give a shout out to my local Boston nonprofit user group. Specifically, too, there's the Power of Us Hub, which is a dedicated online community for nonprofits and educational institutions. It's a fun fact, NPSP began as an open source community project that's now maintained by Salesforce.org. The enhancements follow about a month after the 3 major Salesforce releases, and there are minor updates and bug fixes about every 2 weeks. So it's constantly innovating. I also wanted to give a shout out here to this Open Source Commons community sprint, which is where the community comes together to problem solve in a variety of different ways around the needs of our community. And there happens to be one coming up next week.
And if you haven't found the Power of Us Hub, I've just dropped into the chat a couple of links related to that, what Daniel was just mentioning.
Okay, so now I want to orientate us a bit to the data model and data dictionary for NPSP. And the reason I start here is that both of these resources allow us to understand how NPSP adds to the Salesforce platform, how the objects relate to each other, and thus the type of information that we can report on. So we'll switch over here. And available within the documentation, we can see this diagram. And so what I kind of want to point out is first you have objects that are in blue, okay? And so these are out of the box. We're used to accounts and contacts and opportunities and campaigns, for example. We have objects in pink that relate to people, relationships, and programs. So in NPSP, we can have contacts that relate to each other in relationships. We can also have contacts relate to accounts and affiliations. And then just over here with tasks, we have the engagement plan feature, which really allows us, for example, at our different donor levels, set out a journey of tasks and follow-ups. And then especially in yellow, we have the fundraising objects. So we have our opportunity there. We can have payments and credits that we're going to get into in a little bit. as well as the deliverables, those tasks that would be specifically related to the grants. Now back at the slide, I also want to show just really briefly the NPSP data dictionary. So here, again, it's available within the documentation. We have a tab for the objects that come out of the box with NPSP. So we can see sort of orientate us to the different types of information. And then there is a tab for the different fields. So again, it's definitely worth taking time reviewing this and seeing the types of information that would be most relevant to your organization, and thus that you would be able to report on when that information is filled out.
I'm so glad that the team put together the ERD. I feel like that's not something we talk about enough in the Salesforce world, to just have a good foundation for reporting. One system that I worked in, I've shared this before on the Dōjō, I think. It was probably the year was like 2003, and I worked in a system that had 400 tables. And I was trying to report on it, and I begged and pleaded with the company, the software company, to send me their ERD. And it took an entire wall. I printed it out and lovingly stitched it all together just to try to trace what tables needed to be reported and need to be included in reporting. But this is such a great place to start with reporting, is just understanding how is all the data connected. I'm glad you brought this up, Daniel.
And I didn't mention, in gray are utility objects. So there's different objects that help NPSP run as well. So yeah, I love it. I mean, all the documentation, as we'll see a little bit later too, is absolutely phenomenal.
And just like anywhere else, you can hang custom objects. And so in each of your own organizations, you might have additional objects that have been added that also have an impact on the reporting that you're looking to do.
Definitely. So let's talk about some of the over 60 reports and dashboards that come with NPSP out of the box, which we can find listed in the NPSP Reports workbook, which is another documentation available. Now, we're going to do this in context of a live demo based on a few sample questions a nonprofit might want to answer with the data it has. Why are we framing this demo around questions? Because each report you use and create should aim to help answer questions and drive actions your team can take from the insights they have, plus the data and information that's available. I'm also going to start the demo with what's available already in NPSP for reports, because I recommend always exploring first what's available out of the box. Then you can customize a copy of an existing report, so we don't override what's already there, before we go ahead and build a new report. So let's jump into the org. So if we go over to reports, we take a look at all folders. Here we go. These are the different folders of reports that are available out of the box. And just to quickly show one, we have NPSP fundraising reports. So 35 already out of the box that help us understand the types of ways that we can report. And we can obviously extend any of these from there, as we'll see later on too. So you have reports about the accounts. You have reports centered around the opportunities and the payments that are coming in. And just, on and on from there with the grants and comparisons. And I love the description fields. Definitely best practice. Put the questions that the report is trying to answer as a description. It really helps save people to know if that's the report they need before they go ahead and click into it. So it's another area where the team really excels. Now, David, I think you pointed out that this is remarkable to have 60 out of the box. I know in other orgs, I think you mentioned they don't necessarily come with reporting out of the box.
Well, and it's interesting because in Classic, I think it was around 75, and they're still sitting there in Classic, that there are 75 out of the box reports, samples that are available in Classic. When Salesforce made the move to Lightning a little over 5 years ago, 0 of those were brought over. And I think as of today, there's one sample report that's like flow related that comes with if you fire up a brand new Salesforce instance, there's one sample report that appears in Lightning, and it's not really relevant to anything. So it's kind of great to have these as starting points that you can then go adjust filters, adjust groupings, change columns, and make them yours.
Absolutely. So our first question, who are our top donors? There's an out-of-the-box report called Top 25 Account Donors Lifetime. Now, what I love about Lightning is there's different ways to find what you're looking for. So I can go to the global search, start typing in top 25, and we see there we have a return. If I'm in all reports, I can start typing top 25. But my favorite feature here for this are favorites. So I've already gone ahead and favorited the reports for today, and you can go ahead and search within there as well. So let's click in. Who are our top donors? So this is sorted by the total gifts throughout the lifetime of the organization. So the major donor household, $1 million in total gifts. But we have other columns of information too here. We have the total gifts this year at 0, same with last year. The last time they gave is in 2019. We could take the We Fund Trailblazers organization next, and we see the story there of $260,000. Not this year yet, but there was $100,000 last year. So this is really useful for knowing who your major donors are, to keep thanking them, to keep them immersed in your mission and ways that meet their needs as well, and also to consider a plan to retain and also find new sources of major donors so you can diversify your donor base. I just want to call out these fields here, these totals and the last, they're roll-ups from the opportunities to these accounts. And we're going to chat more about that feature a little bit later in the presentation. Just a quick call out, we only see 10 records because that's all that's in the org, but this would normally be top 25. Second question, who gave some other year, but unfortunately not this year yet? And I want to emphasize the yet, because that's the whole point of this report. The account side button report. Some year, but unfortunately not this year yet. Let's go take a look. So again, I'm going to go to my favorites, and I have it right here, all ready to go for us. Okay, so we're grouped by the record type. So in NPSP, we have household accounts. The contacts roll up into that. It could be one or more, regardless of who writes the check. They roll up into the household account as a given unit. And our organization accounts. Okay, we also have our account name here. And so let's just quickly walk through the amazing donor and significant other household. What we're seeing here is a total of $22,000 in gifts. They gave $13,000 last year, but they're on this report because they haven't yet given. Second, the major donor household, $1 million. No gift this year. And I added the last gift date here too. So that's an example of customizing. Okay, that was back in 2019 was when their last gift was anyway. And we fund Trailblazers. Some considerations, some donors might do their giving at the end of a calendar year, such as for tax purposes. We do want to consider the overall giving, and that's why this total gifts column is really important. And as we probably know, it's more than just about the money. What can we do to engage these constituents so that they stay connected with our mission? Because the more connected they are to our mission, potentially the more likely they are to say yes to an ask for a pledge or a donation. So another really useful report. Okay, where are this year's grants at in the process, and when's the next step? So for this, we have a grants this year report. Pop over here. Now this is grouped by whether we've won that grant yet. If not, it's still likely in the process, and which stage it's at. So grants such as from foundations can be a major source of revenue for nonprofits. NPSP enables nonprofits to track the entire grant lifecycle, which is a separate sales process behind the scenes, and to manage the various deliverables or tasks required of them. So if we take a look at the major grant foundation, we can see it's $525,000. I love the naming convention, done automatically if you want. You can see the close date here. And then we can see that column for next deliverable. So there's something due to keep following up on that grant on 3/1. In some additional context, nonprofits apply for grants by responding to initial call expressing interest, submitting a formal application proposal, and providing supporting documentation. This could be about the mission, the financials, the impact, intended outcomes. Various phone calls and meetings and presentations are often required. So again, deliverables and tasks can help us there. And then once the money is awarded, often for a specific program or purpose, the grantees have to usually report back on how the funds were applied and how they measured against the outcomes outlined. So just really quick, and again with reports, we can click in. We're looking at a different view than we might for other donations of a life cycle there. I'm just going to scroll down and we see that deliverables. So we need to submit references by 3/1. And there would be ways to also bring that into the report.
This one, Daniel, I think would be a great candidate. I'm not suggesting you do it now, but the report itself is set up as a summary with 2 groupings, and that could be a matrix report, essentially with a row level grouping and a column grouping. And this is something we talk about a lot on the sales side of things, to just get that bird's eye view of the pipeline. So if you were to do that, basically the same report, but change the grouping, that second grouping of what status is it in, to a row level grouping, and then collapse it, you'd have that bird's eye view. With only a couple of records, it's not going to mean much to show it now, but just keep in mind that there are other ways to look at this that can be quite meaningful.
And that's the point. See what's available and then use your imagination and slice and look at the data in different ways. It's really, really powerful. That's a great point. So what expected payments do I have coming in to look out for? And there's a report called expected payments. So I'll go back to favorites. Let's click in. So in NPSP, opportunities have payments. Usually it could be 1 or more. So sometimes a donor will cut a check for the $1,000 that they've pledged or swipe a credit card. It's all done. Other times, for example, with a grant, there could be payments that will be awarded, let's say by fiscal quarter. So NPSP allows for flexibility in the data model to meet your accounting rules and the way that you'd like to do your forecasting. So here we see a grouping by the scheduled date of those payments, 2 in February, 1 in July. And we can just kind of go over here and take a look at some of the amounts coming in. So this is really reminding me of the collaboration that reporting can do between, in this case, finance and accounting and a development team, so that they can stay on top of the promised and pending gifts to follow up as necessary with donors. There's a variant of this report that shows overdue payments. So again, really nice way to sort of take a look at what's coming in. All right. So here's an interesting one. Who gave more or less this year, so that we could be sure to acknowledge them or reach out specifically to thank them? And I underline that for both scenarios. I think it's important to keep thanking the people that contribute to our mission in a variety of different ways. Let's take a look at this one, what this can enable us to do. One of the things I love about this report is it's really important, in my opinion, to acknowledge donors who are increasing their giving, and also to look out for donors that may be lapsing in their giving. So let's take a look. There seems to be a lot of information here, but we have it grouped by the account. We have the amazing donor and significant other household that's had 2 different opportunities here. And we can see we have those account roll-ups. So the total gifts this year are 0, but last year was the total of the $13,000. So I added in the conditional formatting so we could easily see that's a potentially lapsed donor that we might need to follow up on if the giving's going in a different direction. The Suburb Foundation here, $1,000. Now we see that their gifts were this year. They didn't give last year, so that's a nice 100% increase. That you can look out for new donors or a previously lapsed donor who now has returned their giving to the organization. And then lastly, we have the increasing donor household. Very clever with the naming convention here. And this is what I'm talking about. They were at $18,000 last year, $20,000 this, so it's 11%. And so, you know, we all have limited resources, nonprofits in particular. And so reports like this can really help us enable and think about what are the next best actions that we need to take. So in this case too, it could be like maybe a donors of a specific giving percentage. You know, you mentioned that in a handwritten note, if that's sort of part of your playbook. So reports like this can really help you get an understanding of the health of your existing donor base and look out for new donors as well.
So Daniel, Saulo asked a question. Can we add actions to a report like select records and send an acknowledgement email?
I have seen that done very cleverly. I believe it was through something, a flow perhaps, or something of that nature. Certainly you could click in. And I think I've seen Safe Harbor statement. There may be some features coming out and reporting, like the ability to edit from a report. So I don't know if that gets us closer to being able to do something like that. But I did see someone have a really neat link that launched a flow or something of that nature.
I wonder if there's another approach, which is with campaigns, if a report lists contacts or leads, you can add them to a campaign. And then once somebody's associated with a campaign, I believe you can send an email to the campaign list. So, and that might help you get around. So Saulo, if there were 50 people that you needed to follow up with, you could choose to add those people from, so it wouldn't appear here on an opportunity report, but a report that has contacts, the ability to add them to a campaign. So I don't know if anybody's tried that. I think that would be something that's possible.
I love it. Yeah, and I've seen, if we did have phone number here, which we certainly could bring in. Sometimes there's a link where you can click it and maybe, it will bring up your call system. So that's a really, really good question. We want to be able to take actions from our reports. So that's good. And we can also follow up and explore together. So I just want to give a nod to the power of utility reports to keep the org in better shape. And NPSP has health check reports. I also enjoy building exception and data quality monitoring reports, just because, as we know, the information, this was mentioned earlier, that we get out of the system is only as good as the information that goes in. So while we can create various rules and formatting of the data to make sure that it's meeting specific needs, having an exception report, and I've done that as a dashboard where all the reports sort of roll up to the dashboard with gauges. And if I see all zeros, I know I'm okay for now. If not, then I can explore or let people know that something seems to be getting off the wrong track. Okay. Now, for this part of the presentation, I'd like to show 2 examples of custom reports. So again, always try to find an out-of-the-box report that nearly meets your needs. Save a copy of that report so that you can tweak it. So the first custom report example is account trends by best gift year. Let's take a look at what that shows us. Let's take a look at this. We're grouped by the best gift year. We're grouped by a combination of the account name and ID, just in case 2 different households have similar name, and also because the ID by itself wouldn't be as useful. So what are we looking at here? Let's take a look at the increasing donor household. Best gift year is this year. Look at this amazing trend. So we see here, this is now a matrix report. And it's similar to the report we saw before, but adds in another rich layer of information. So again, grouped by the best gift year, and then look at this across the columns, we have the giving by totals by year. And so increasing donor household started in 2017 at $9,000 and has steadily gone up. That's something to keep in mind and to definitely acknowledge. We have a newer donor. They started in 2020, at least according to the history here, with $25,000, and they've also gone up. Now, keep in mind, anyone that's showing the best gift year of 2020 and prior are examples of potentially lapsed donors to follow up on. But even there, we have a story of the We Fund Trailblazers. Started at $75,000. It has been steady, and it may be that they plan to give. We just might need to follow up. So it's really a nice, powerful way, again, to see a different view of the information so that we can then know the next best actions to take for our donor base.
I love trending, Daniel. That's
Yes.
awesome. One of the first dojos that we did last fall was focused on trending and different types of trending. It's such a great way to elevate your game with reporting.
Absolutely. It's underutilized.
I thought to throw in a question from Sean, who said, how often would you suggest reviewing the NPSP health check reports? And if others in the group have answers for Sean, maybe you can post it to the chat if you have your own experiences for how often.
I'm going to give a shout out, and it was a series that I remember Mark Baseman doing on Trailhead Live. And it was about admin best practices every day, week, month, quarter, year. And I adopted a similar schedule for my organization of key things to look out for. I would put something like that, and depending on what's in that folder, we can certainly take a look. I think at a minimum at a quarter basis. But again, if you have it as a dashboard, it might be nice and easy to sort of refresh that once a month or even subscribe to it so that you can be notified of any of the data within starts to change. But I think that first step of even just creating for yourself that checklist, that admin habits checklist, and carving out time to do it is very important and is often the thing that can slip. So it's a really, really good question. I appreciate that. The second custom report, one of my favorites, you have the board give get. I'll explain what does that mean. Board give get. Board members. Just turn off the chart for a moment. So I love that you can just toggle on and off different visuals and information. So before we dive in, let me just review a few NPSP concepts. So we saw there are relationships, people to people, and affiliations, people to organizations in NPSP. And as we heard before, it's important to put in what you know so that you can get a better 360-degree view of each person and the organizations, but also because it enables features like soft credits to automatically attribute a gift that was coming in to someone, to an organization. So for example, a board member has a friend, you can set up the relationship, and every time that friend gives to your organization, the system can automatically soft credit them. And that's the board member I'm talking about. So that's that get part. What do they help get? What do they help bring in? And then what do they give? So we can see two board members here. The soft credits is what I'm talking about, what they help get. $22,000 total for this board member. They haven't helped bring in donations yet this year. We're only in January. They brought in $13,000 of get. And then we can see they themselves have donated $40,000 this year. The second board member, $60,000, 35 this, 25 last year. Super strong in what they're getting. And for them, that $10,000 might be just where they need to be at the give. So a really nice way to acknowledge the board members and to help them be stewards and champions for the organization as well.
Oh, it's awesome holding them accountable for that role that they play. I mean, they wear so many hats, but that's awesome.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I want to point out, I chose to make this based off of the opportunities series of report types because I wanted to be able to drill in. So this is a great example of a nice summary level report but you have the ability to turn on those detail rows and get at the specifics. So this year, we have to just remember that's part of our filter here. And again, keep in mind, these are roll-ups from the account, so they're going to look like that they're doubling and tripling, but Salesforce does keep the grand totals and subtotals true on point. So just know we've turned on the details, and that's why that's happening. But we can turn them back off. So again, you get 2 reports in one there, which is really, really, really nice. Okay, now let's take a look at a custom dashboard. And I built this using components from what we've seen in the various reports shown thus far. And as I've recommended, I did go to look at the dashboards that come with NPSP out of the box and really adapted mine from there. So let me show you where these live. It's not a tab. I can add it though within this app. So I'm going to go ahead to the waffle and search for dash. Click into my dashboards. And I want to go to look at all the folders. So there we go. We have some NPSP dashboards out of the box. So we can take a look at any one of those. Now I'm going to go to the one that I created, my NPSP fundraising dashboard. Dashboards are incredibly powerful in what they can do. Definitely add this as a potential New Year's thing to focus on. Let me talk through just the various components for a moment, okay? So we're looking here at a dashboard with those account trends by best gift year. We have that board member give get this year, and then we have the account side button report as a component here. And then below we're using the dark theme, I love that, of the different types of information we can also look on, especially that top 25 account donors lifetime. And look at this, look at the org's health. Donations are almost 100% up from the year prior. Woohoo! That's doubling. In a pandemic. In January. So let's talk about some really powerful features here. This is why you want dashboards. If I want to look at these account trends for 2019, I can click on that slice. You'll bring me right to that report, already filtered by that. I didn't have to go to the report and change the filter. I started with the dashboard at that higher level view. It used that to help us dive in and take a look at the detailed information. Again, I can toggle on and off some of those detail rows too. Using my back arrow. We also have links to each one of the reports. If I want to go look at the board member give get again, I can click right in. So again, I don't have to go search for report folders. I can click right from the dashboard. And then I love, we can take a look at here, we're looking, and by the way, I always forget about this. You can always expand out a visual. There's a live demo of that. I love that. You can save it. And, just like you'd expect, you can kind of hover over and see, for example, our donations are 111,000. And our grants right now, the ones that had been won, not the ones that were still in the pipeline, 200,000.
And while Daniel's in that view, that expanded view, you can toggle left and right and go between all of the charts on the dashboard. There's also a download capability where you can download a PDF of the one that you're looking at if you need to like grab that screen grab and drop it into some deck. Also, if you've enabled chatter for dashboards, next to the download link, there's a little chatter that you could comment on something. We just didn't enable it in this org.
And one of my favorite, and I'm thinking about my organization here, all of you on the line, and everyone on the line, filtering. Now, I have billing state as an example, but imagine if you had 50 locations across the country and you want to be able to have one dashboard that rules them all, and then people can go in and filter those components. That's the point of dashboard filters. You don't have to have 50 separate reports, each with a filter for a location. You can have one dashboard. So I'll show you how that works. Right now we're looking at all the states. But just for purposes, I put in, billing state, Massachusetts. Okay, so it's refreshing the components. If it says it can't draw it, there may not be data within there that matches that. That's okay. Well, look at this. If I click this component now, I want to show you something. This underlying report is now filtered to Massachusetts. How do I know? I can go look at the filters. There's the link to filters right from that dashboard component. Okay, preserves the underlying report. People don't have to go in and change filters. They don't have 50 copies. We can have one dashboard, which is really, really super powerful.
I feel like that makes for great end user training. Similarly with the run environment for just reports, because there are some pretty cool filtering and drill down capabilities and the ability to add charts to any, to any report that's been grouped as well. It's almost like we should aim to teach our end users how to use these things.
Absolutely.
Daniel, Ted asked a great question. Just prior to your move to talking about dashboards, you were showing the second custom report that you had created. And Ted asked if you could show the detail view of that second report that you created.
Yeah. So I believe it was the board members give get. And I only chose to bring in, I think, the opportunity name here. But we're getting the details for this year's giving. Keep in mind that we also have those account rollups, though, that can tell us of the lifetime. And it's nice because we can click and drill into there too.
And that's great that you've got the option. So thank you for doing that. That's great.
And that's why I could have easily based this off of accounts if I didn't need that detail as well. And that would probably be even faster of a report to run, but I did want it. So it's nice to, and that's the key thing. Just think through, use the data model, the data dictionary, and think through sort of how you want to center your reports to be able to bring in how much detail do you need? And then that will help you make decisions like what report type will the report be based off of.
Just a quick time check for you. We're at 47 past the hour.
I was just about to say, I want to power through really quick and just mention that today's demo with things like total gifts this year, they're part of the customizable rollup feature, which I absolutely love. There's over 80 of them out of the box. They can either aggregate information so they can go look at your records, like your opportunities, and give us the total, the average of the count, and roll it up to that account. There are single result operation rollups. And what those do is they go get information. Let's say you want your largest gift, that $1 million gift. You want to bring information from that onto the account, like a link to it as well. You can do that. They run overnight, but they can be recalculated on demand. And they are far better performance than running reports all the time and say, hey, give me all opportunities filtered by this person, simply to be able to get a grand total. In the interest of time, I won't click into the org, but this is what it would look like, for example, on the account record page. And using some of the features in Lightning, you can even break out that donation information from the details as a separate tab so that your fundraisers, your frontline staff could easily click there. They don't have to do a bunch of page scrolling. So really, really useful. Okay. So really, really quick. These are just examples of reporting beyond fundraising, and shout out to Jay for reminding me to put on here volunteers. We have campaigns and leads and prospects. How do people find out about us? Who do they know? We had some questions about that today. You know, if you're doing case management and service delivery or outcomes measurements, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and what can be done. But that's, again, where starting with the data model and dictionary are really helpful to see what's available to you.
So Daniel, I've had an idea. I think we should do another session later in the year and ask people to prepare a slide of something cool that they've done.
Yes.
With reporting and NPSP, and that might come full circle from today's introduction to the functionality. All right. So Salo says all caps yes. That would be great. I think that'd be really fun. So we'll aim to do that a little later in the year.
Brilliant. So our recap: we did a high-level intro to NPSP. We started with the data model and the data dictionary, so we know what types of information we can use already out of the box and populate so that we can have the reporting. We start with those over 60 available reports out of the box. And then we talked through just examples of how we can extend those reports further or create new ones. And you all know one of my favorite features is the dashboards, especially when you have people across the country or at different types of slices. They want to look at all of the information. Customizable rollups is what it enables us to really be able to see those grand totals and averages and links to records, all sorts of fun things. And then, of course, while a lot of the demo is about fundraising examples, we can extend that beyond to whatever is available. And I just want to leave with, before we get to Q&A and the remaining slides, NPSP Resources, just really quick. As we mentioned earlier today, the documentation out of the box for what's available out of the box is absolutely magnificent. I just want to give a shout out to that team. So it's on the Power of Us Hub. You have the NPSP documentation, absolutely superb. We have trails on Trailhead, of course. And we did get to talk about, but really briefly, Evan here has deluxe custom reports. And what I love is this is having us think through, what is that center object we want to report on? And then we use lookups to go grab. So if opportunities is at the center, we can bring in then anything about that, the accounts that are linked, the contacts. So instead of having to run a bunch of separate reports, we can sort of use this as an example of a way to make reporting even more powerful. And just a nod to the nonprofit trends report, whether you're newer to the industry or you've been in it for a while, Salesforce.org did just publish. I believe it's the second version. Super powerful insights in there to help formulate your strategy and get to know what nonprofits do. You can install NPSP in a dev org. There's a link to it on the Power of Us Hub. Some of the materials today have been referenced the history from the Salesforce Ben article by Melissa Hill. So just really, really wonderful resources to continue the learning. And with that, I want to hand it back over to David.
David, I think you're muted.
I'm laughing because I've got a lot of windows open. So thank you so much, Daniel. That was really, really great, and I love the idea about getting the group back together. I just dropped into the chat, so throughout the chat I've been dropping in different documents and links that Daniel's been mentioning. This is sort of this last clump is sort of a recap that Daniel just went through of various, so you could copy and paste that or download the chat from today. To talk about some upcoming sessions, formulas, just like with Excel, it's such a big deal to have skills with formulas. It really accelerates your ability to do reporting. I encourage anyone who attends any of my reporting workshops, to think of when they get stuck with reporting, to keep in the back of their mind that a formula might be the get out of jail free card with your reporting challenge. Just keep that in the back of your mind. So we're actually going to take our time. We're going to do 3 sessions. We'll do each one hands-on. I'd love to have all of you join us, because this is just like with Excel. That the people that you work with, your colleagues that know Excel formulas, they can just get more done. The same is true with Salesforce reports and dashboards. So we'll spend time on row level formulas, summary formulas, cross-block formulas. We'll talk about custom formula fields and just tips and tricks, and we'll just get in and do them together. And one of the key things is just getting comfortable with functions and how they work, because the functions do the heavy lifting. So we have 3 sessions dedicated to it, the 17th, March 4th, and March 24th. And you can register now at dashboarddojo.com. Why don't we go to the next slide? And I've got 2 classes I'm teaching coming up, a 5-day Salesforce admin course. Somehow I'm in year 16 of teaching on the platform. That's the 22nd through the 26th of February. And then March 9th and 10th, we'll do a 2-day hands-on reporting workshop. And we're offering Dōjō participants a discount on both of those classes if you're interested. Why don't we go to the next slide? All right. And so just so you have it, Daniel's Twitter handle is SF Trailblazer. I do think he is an absolute trailblazer. So glad that you joined us today, Daniel. Perhaps we can open it up if anyone wants to ask any additional questions in the chat or using the Q&A feature. We're happy to take some additional questions in the few remaining minutes. I love how you talked about dashboard filters, Daniel. I feel like there's so many things with dashboards that, you know, you start combining features and you just really end up with some really powerful stuff. Thank you, Jay, for the comment there. I'd be curious to if somebody has feedback on the community event last week, nonprofit Dreamin'. I've attended so many of the Dreamin''s around, you know, in different countries, different places participated, and I think they're all fantastic. I imagine that there are a lot of recordings that were valuable that'll be available coming out of that event. Daniel, you were able to attend some of the sessions.
Yeah, my favorite one was on artificial intelligence that nonprofits can do through Einstein and other features. That was one of them. There was many actually that I enjoyed.
Well, that's great. Well, we'll certainly make this recording available. So on the Dashboard Dōjō site, it's just dashboarddōjō.com. There's a resources page. It looks like Ted's got a question. Any advice on reporting on contacts with greetings for email marketing? Reporting on contacts with greetings for email marketing. And we could ask
a little more
clarifying.
Yeah, so the nonprofit that I work with, like they love the automatic greeting field that happens on a household account to be able to have the formal and informal greeting, but they're wondering like how they can get something similar for contacts that work for companies when they send out emails, and I just don't know if that could just be solved through reporting by, you know, grabbing that greeting and through a report, you know, or if it really needs to be something that needs to be sort of replicated so it could be used outside of the household context.
You know, I'd have to go into the dev org to confirm. We know we could bring down the account to a contact report, but I don't know why I'm feeling like there is something similar that either is already there that we can do for the salutations at the or the greetings at the contact level.
Okay,
something we could follow up on. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I also like the automatic naming too. I love features that can save us time.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'll hit you up on Twitter since you put your handle out there, and maybe we can follow up.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please keep us in mind for future events. You know, and if you have ideas for topics, for things that you'd like to see, we can certainly consider those. I've just started off these last handful of dojos with things that interest me. So it's all very selfish, and certainly formulas for the next 3 is a big topic. And the hands-on element, you know, we're still trying to perfect it, but I think it's a really, you know, it's just a good way, and we'll just try to figure out to keep the pacing correct. So thank you to everyone who's provided feedback for us on the initial dashboard dojos. Okay, Jay's going to join us for formulas. Great. Thank you for all the feedback and input today, Ted, as well. So thank you so much, Daniel. It's really a pleasure having you present today. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So what a treasure in the Salesforce community that you are.
Likewise.
Well, great. So we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you back at a future dojo. Thank you. Take care.